And we're off. The first of 5 elections in 2024 is taking place this week. We'll tell you what's on the ballot. The U.S.-Mexico border is once again a major campaign issue. Arizona lawmakers are weighing in. And it's been 2 months since the legislative session began. We'll catch you up on the major issues playing out. Welcome to The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. This week, we're coming to you from the Arizona Capitol Grounds complex, where officials chosen by you shape the policies that impact Arizonans the most. Let's go ahead and get started this week with the top 3 things you need to know. The first of 5 elections scheduled in Arizona in 2024 is this week. Voters in 2 Valley cities head to the polls on Tuesday. In Litchfield Park, residents will decide if their town should become Arizona's newest charter city. If passed, it would be the first one in 40 years in the Phoenix metro. Voters in Tempe will choose their city's leadership. Mayor Corey Woods is running unopposed, but 5 others are vying for 3 seats. The second election will be next week on March 19th. Arizona voters will choose their preferred candidate for president. 9 candidates qualified for the Republican ballot. Half of them have dropped out, but the 2 biggest names remaining are Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. 7 names will appear on the Democratic ballot, where Biden, the incumbent, holds a considerable advantage. Not everyone is able to participate in this election. Under Arizona law, you have to be registered either as a Democrat or a Republican to vote. If you didn't change your registration by February 20th, you're no longer eligible. Check with your county recorder for the nearest voting location to you. Our main story this week is about what's happening at the Arizona-Mexico border. Migrant crossings here at the Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument have decreased significantly since peaking in December, but historically, migrant crossings tend to rise in March when warm weather sets over the Sonoran Desert. Could this be the calm before the storm? There's a major test looming in southern Arizona. Starting on April 1st, border agents could begin dropping off thousands of migrants and asylum seekers apprehended in places like Organ Pipe at border communities in the state. Small and rural towns like Ajo don't have a bus station, airport, or shelter, but it houses a large, busy Border Patrol station nearby. Since 2019, a network of nonprofits and local governments in Arizona have coordinated for years with federal officials. After processing migrants at the border, they'll drop them off at designated sites like Casa Alitas, the main shelter operated by Catholic Community Services in Tucson.
We're all able to work together to help nearly 400,000 people from all over the world, and with minimal disruption to southern Arizona. Indeed, most of Tucson's residents would never even have seen a single asylum seeker.
On average, Customs and Border Protection releases about 1,000 migrants daily in southern Arizona. In smaller communities like Douglas, the state has chartered buses to transport migrants to Phoenix and Tucson. The goal is to avoid releasing migrants and asylum seekers into the streets of border cities. But that system could look different starting in April, when federal funding dries out unless Congress approves more money.
They have an opportunity to act, and they have refused to act. And it should not fall on the shoulders of the city of Tucson or Pima County to pick up on their lack of action.
When the money is gone, thousands of migrants could instead be dropped off here at the Tucson Greyhound Station. Without federal funds, Casa Alitas will close the larger of 2 buildings it currently uses, drastically reducing how many migrants they can take in. Government officials here in Pima County and throughout southern Arizona worry that starting on April 1st, Border Patrol could release as many as 400 migrants per day here in Tucson, another 400 in Nogales, and up to 150 in Douglas.
Folks, it's time for us to move on this. We can't wait any longer.
It's become a major issue in 2024. Biden and Trump made dueling visits to the Texas border to spotlight how prominent border security has become during this election cycle.
But we need to do more. It's time to step up. It's time to step up, provide them with significantly more personnel and capability.
Biden visited Brownsville. Under political pressure, he has shifted from a humanitarian-focused approach to tougher stances on the border. He's considering taking executive action to stem illegal crossings.
If you look at Arizona, they haven't done anything there.
Trump visited Eagle Pass, the site of an ongoing showdown between the state and federal government. Federal courts are deciding how far states can get involved in border and immigration enforcement, which until now has been exclusively the federal government's responsibility.
They have just been incredible. The operation that they showed me is nothing less than incredible. And I'll say this, it's a military operation. I mean, we have this is like a war.
Attempts in Congress to do something about it have repeatedly failed.
Less than 24 hours after we released the bill, my Republican colleagues changed their minds. Turns out they want all talk and no action. It turns out border security is not actually a risk to our national security. It's just a talking point for the election.
Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema's bipartisan border deal died last month before it could really take off. Sinema announced last week she will not seek re-election, citing growing partisanship. As Texas shows, the ongoing situation leaves individual states to step in and sometimes outright take over border enforcement. Lawmakers in Arizona are following suit. They passed a bill similar to a Texas law that makes crossing the border in between ports of entry a state crime. It's called the Arizona Border Invasion Act. They also drafted a concurrent resolution that requires that businesses and local governments verify a person's legal status to work or request public services paid for with state funds. The resolution makes it a felony not to use E-Verify. The bills have the support of nearly all Republicans in the legislature, but resolutions do not need the governor's signature. If passed, it will be sent to voters.
In short, if this ballot initiative passes, illegal aliens will have every reason to leave the state of Arizona.
These bills face opposition from Democrats, business leaders, and community advocacy groups. Governor Katie Hobbs also took a swipe, calling them job-killing bills and accusing state Republicans of playing politics. Critics say the bills are moving the state backwards.
Now, our job is to serve our communities, not to police it. And business owners have no business enforcing the Republican anti-immigrant laws.
This brings us back to the state capitol. Republican lawmakers know their bills might not get past the governor's veto, but they're gearing up to send the resolution to voters on November 5th. As expected, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs used her first veto last week to kill the Arizona Border Invasion Act. She said she had constitutional concerns with the bill and that would not secure the border. HCR 2060, which mandates the use of E-Verify, has cleared the House and is waiting on action from the Senate. These border bills are dubbed by critics as SB 1070 2.0, referring to the last anti-immigrant bill passed at the Capitol that was signed into law. It's been 14 years now since then. Check out Season 2 of Rediscovering SB 1070 to revisit the impact it left on Arizona. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Let's listen to a clip.
In the early 2000s, the U.S. Border Patrol was making more than 1 million arrests a year in Arizona.
We cannot stand idly by as drop houses, kidnappings, and violence compromise our quality of life.
Coming up, a roundup of major laws coming out of the legislature.
The Arizona Republic. Here for it. Are you?
The complex that houses Arizona's government consists of the historic building you see behind me, plus 2 chambers and an executive tower added decades later. The historic Capitol building was completed in 1901, 11 years before Arizona became a state. Lawmakers met here until 1960. The governor moved out in 1974. Perhaps the most famous feature is the Copper Dome. It's made of recycled copper and has been replaced 3 times since the metal was installed in 1975. The building now houses the Capitol Museum, which is free to the public. As a seat of power in Arizona, you have a direct role in deciding what the legislature looks like. After decades dominating state politics, Republicans hold simple majorities in both the State House and Senate. Elections are every 2 years for all state lawmakers, which means that all 60 House seats and 30 Senate seats are up for grabs in November. We're 2 months into the current legislative session. The Arizona Republic has a team dedicated to providing you with the latest news coming out of the Capitol. Republic reporter Ray Stern has a roundup of the major issues he's tracking this year.
Hi, I'm Ray Stern. I'm the state politics and issues reporter for the Arizona Republic. My job is to cover the Arizona State Legislature, which means that I have 90 best friends. I hang out with legislators in both the Senate and the House. I kind of follow what the legislature is doing and look at some of the issues that they're doing and focus on specific bills that they're writing and things that pass or fail in the legislature. I also work with Mary Jo Pitzel, who's sort of a super legislative reporter and knows just about everything about what the legislature's been doing. And I also work with Stacey Barchinger, who's also a state politics reporter, and she covers the governor's office mainly, but also the attorney general's office. The legislature is in the middle of its session right now. They've still got a lot of work to do before they can go home, including the budget. And it's possible that they may get done by May or June, but we still don't know for sure. I'm Ray Stern with the Arizona Republic.
To stay up to date on the latest news coming out of the legislature, head to AZ Central or listen to The Gaggle, an Arizona politics podcast by the Arizona Republic.
Arizona Republic and azcentral.com journalists have been covering Arizona politics since 1890. Our reporting puts your politicians and lawmakers under the magnifying glass. We ask the questions that matter most to you. On our podcast, The Gaggle, you get the stories behind the headlines from political newsmakers and from the reporters who cover this news every day.
For this week's Sunspot, we're taking you back to Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. The park is home to Quito Baquito Springs, also known to the Autumn as A'alvaipia. The National Park Service has finally stabilized water levels at this desert oasis after major redesign and construction efforts in the area. Frequent leaks to the pond's lining cause water to seep into the ground, endangering the home of Arizona's most elusive species, like the Sonoita mud turtle and the Quito Baquito pupfish. The Park Service is now replanting vegetation around the pond to stabilize the soil and provide a home for its endangered residents. Thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and AZ Central. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.